Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 67, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, The Lie and L'Envoi. Part 6 continued. The Lie. The Lie by Sir Walter Raleigh, 1552 to 1618, is one of the strongest and most appealing poems a teacher can read to her pupils when teaching early American history. The poem is full of magnificent lines, such as, "Go, soul, the body's guest." The poem never lacks an attentive audience of young people when correlated with the study of North Carolina and Sir Walter Raleigh. The solitary, majestic character of Sir Walter Raleigh, his intrepidity while undergoing tortures inflicted by a cowardly king, the ring of indignation, all these make a weapon for him stronger than the axe that beheaded him. In this poem, he has the last word. Go, soul, the body's guest, upon a thankless errand. Fear not to touch the best. The truth shall be thy warrant. Go, since I needs must die, and give the world the lie. Go tell the court it glows and shines like rotten wood. Go tell the church it shows what's good, and doth no good. If church and court reply, then give them both the lie. Tell potentates they live acting by others' actions, not loved unless they give, not strong but by their factions. If potentates reply, give potentates the lie. Tell men of high condition that rule affairs of state, their purpose is ambition, their practice only hate. And if they once reply, then give them all the lie. Tell zeal it lacks devotion, tell love it is but lust, tell time it is but motion, tell flesh it is but dust, and wish them not reply, for thou must give the lie. Tell wit how much it wrangles in tickle points of niceness, tell wisdom she entangles herself in overwiseness, and if they do reply, straight give them both the lie. Tell physic of her boldness, tell skill it is pretension, tell charity of coldness, tell law it is contention, and as they yield reply, so give them still the lie. Tell fortune of her blindness, tell nature of decay, tell friendship of unkindness, tell justice of delay, and if they dare reply, then give them all the lie. Tell arts they have no soundness, but vary by esteeming, tell schools they want profoundness, and stand too much on seeming. If arts and schools reply, give arts and schools the lie. So when thou hast, as I commanded thee, done blabbing, although to give the lie deserves no less than stabbing, yet stab at thee who will, no stab the soul can kill. Sir Walter Raleigh. L'Envoi. L'Envoi by Rudyard Kipling is a favorite on account of its sweeping assertion of the individual's right to self-development. When Earth's last picture is painted, and the tubes are twisted and dried, when the oldest colors have faded, and the youngest critic has died, we shall rest, and, faith, we shall need it, lie down for an aeon or two, till the Master of all good workmen shall set us to work anew. And those who were good shall be happy. They shall sit in a golden chair. They shall splash at a 10-league canvas with brushes of comet's hair. They shall find real saints to draw from, Magdalene, Peter, and Paul. They shall work for an age at a sitting, and never be tired at all. And only the Master shall praise us, and only the Master shall blame. And no one shall work for money, and no one shall work for fame, but each for the joy of the working, and each in his separate star, shall draw the thing as he sees it, for the God of things as they are. Rudyard Kipling. End of section 67. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 12th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 68, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems. Contentment, The Harp That Once Through Tara's Halls, and The Old Oaken Bucket. Part 6 continued. Contentment. Contentment by Edward Dyer, 1545 to 1607. This poem holds much to comfort and control people who are shut up to the joys of meditation, people to whom the world of activity is closed. To be independent of things material, this is the soul's pleasure. My mind to me a kingdom is. Such perfect joy therein I find as far excels all earthly bliss that God or nature hath assigned. Though much I want that most would have, yet still my mind forbids to crave. Content I live, this is my stay, I seek no more than may suffice. I press to bear no haughty sway. Look, what I lack my mind supplies. Lo, thus I triumph like a king, content with that my mind doth bring. I laugh not at another's loss, I grudge not at another's gain. No worldly wave my mind can toss, I brook that is another's bane. I fear no foe, nor fawn on friend, I loathe not life, nor dread mine end. My wealth is health and perfect ease, my conscience clear, my chief defence. I never seek by bribes to please, nor by desert to give offence. Thus do I live, thus will I die. Would all did so as well as I. Edward Dyer. The Harp That Once Through Tara's Halls. The harp that once through Tara's halls the soul of music shed, now hangs as mute on Tara's walls, as if that soul were fled. So sleeps the pride of former days, so glory's thrill is o'er, and hearts that once beat high for praise now feel that pulse no more. No more to chiefs and ladies bright the harp of Tara swells, the chord alone that breaks at night its tale of ruin tells. Thus freedom now so seldom wakes, the only throb she gives is when some heart indignant breaks, to show that still she lives. Thomas Moore. The Old Oaken Bucket. The Old Oaken Bucket by Samuel Woodworth, 1785 to 1848, is a poem we love because it is an elegant expression of something very dear and homely. How dear to this heart are the scenes of my childhood, when fond recollection presents them to view! The orchard, the meadow, the deep-tangled wildwood, and every loved spot which my infancy knew. The wide-spreading pond, and the mill that stood by it, the bridge, and the rock where the cataract fell, the cot of my father, the dairy-house nigh it, and e'en the rude bucket that hung in the well, the old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket which hung in the well. That moss-covered vessel I hailed as a treasure, for often at noon, when returned from the field, I found it the source of an exquisite pleasure, the purest and sweetest that nature can yield. How ardent I seized it, with hands that were glowing, and quick to the white-pebbled bottom it fell, there soon, with the emblem of truth overflowing and dripping with coolness, it rose from the well. The old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket arose from the well. How sweet from the green mossy brim to receive it as poised on the curb it inclined to my lips! Not a full blushing goblet could tempt me to leave it, the brightest that beauty or revelry sips. And now, far removed from the loved habitation, the tear of regret will intrusively swell, as fancy reverts to my father's plantation, and sighs for the bucket that hangs in the well, the old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket that hangs in the well. Samuel Woodworth. End of section 68. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 69, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, The Raven. Part 6 continued. The Raven. The Raven, by Edgar Allan Poe, 1809 to 1849, is placed here because so many college men speak of it at once as the great poem of their boyhood. The poem caught me when a child by its refrain and weird picturesqueness. It has never outgrown its mechanical charm. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping, rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door, only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into my chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a rapping, something louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched above a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled by the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope this melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore." But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy into fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. Thus I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining, that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls twinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch," I cried, "thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite and nepenthe from my memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if, within the distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Be that our sign of parting, bird or fiend," I shrieked, upstarting, "get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Edgar Allan Poe. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt, Section 70, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Arnold von Winkelried. Part 6 continued. Arnold von Winkelried. "Make way for liberty!" he cried. "Make way for liberty!" and died. In arms the Austrian phalanx stood, a living wall, a human wood, a wall where every conscious stone seemed to its kindred thousands grown, a rampart all assaults to bear, till time to dust their frame should wear. So still, so dense the Austrians stood, a living wall, a human wood. Impregnable their front appears, all horrent with projected spears, whose polished points before them shine from flank to flank one brilliant line, bright as the breakers' splendors run along the billows to the sun. Opposed to these a hovering band contended for their fatherland, peasants, whose new-found strength had broke from manly necks the ignoble yoke, and beat their fetters into swords, on equal terms to fight their lords, and what insurgent rage had gained, in many a mortal fray maintained, marshalled once more at freedom's call, they came to conquer or to fall, where he who conquered, he who fell, was deemed a dead or living tell. Such virtue had that patriot breathed, so to the soil his soul bequeathed, that wheresoe'er his arrows flew, heroes in his own likeness grew, and warriors sprang from every sod which his awakening footstep trod. And now the work of life and death hung on the passing of a breath. The fire of conflict burned within, the battle trembled to begin, yet while the Austrians held their ground, point for attack was nowhere found. Where'er the impatient Switzers gazed, the unbroken line of lances blazed. That line 'twere suicide to meet and perish at their tyrants' feet. How could they rest within their graves, and leave their homes, the homes of slaves? Would not they feel their children tread with clanging chains above their head? It must not be. This day, this hour, annihilates the invader's power. All Switzerland is in the field. She will not fly, she cannot yield, she must not fall. Her better fate here gives her an immortal date. Few were the numbers she could boast, but every freeman was a host, and felt as 'twere a secret known, that one should turn the scale alone, while each unto himself was he on whose sole arm hung victory. It did depend on one indeed. Behold him, Arnold Winkelried. There sounds not to the trump of fame the echo of a nobler name. Unmarked he stood amid the throng, in rumination deep and long, till you might see with sudden grace the very thought come o'er his face, and by the motion of his form anticipate the bursting storm, and by the uplifting of his brow tell where the bolt would strike and how. But 'twas no sooner thought than done. The field was in a moment won. "Make way for liberty!" he cried, then ran with arms extended wide, as if his dearest friend to clasp. 10 spears he swept within his grasp. "Make way for liberty!" he cried. Their keen points crossed from side to side. He bowed amidst them like a tree, and thus made way for liberty. Swift to the breach his comrades fly. "Make way for liberty!" they cry, and through the Austrian phalanx dart, as rushed the spears through Arnold's heart, while instantaneous as his fall, rout, ruin, panic seized them all. An earthquake could not overthrow a city with a surer blow. Thus Switzerland again was free, thus death made way for liberty. James Montgomery. End of section 70. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 71, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Life, I Know Not What Thou Art, Mercy, Polonius's Advice, a fragment from Mark Antony's speech, and The Skylark. Part 6 continued. Life, I know not what thou art. Life, I know not what thou art, but know that thou and I must part. And when, or how, or where we met, I own, to me's a secret yet. Life, we've been long together, through pleasant and through cloudy weather. 'Tis hard to part when friends are dear, perhaps 'twill cost a sigh, a tear. Then steal away, give little warning, choose thine own time. Say not good night, but in some brighter clime, bid me good morning. A. L. Barbauld. Mercy. Mercy, an excerpt from The Merchant of Venice, Polonius's advice from Hamlet, and Antony's speech from Julius Caesar, all fragments from Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, find a place in this book because a well-known New York teacher, one who is unremitting in his efforts to raise the good taste and character of his pupils, says, "A book of poetry could not be complete without these extracts." The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His sceptre shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above his sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself, and earthly power doth then show likest God's, when mercy seasons justice. Shakespeare, from The Merchant of Venice. Polonius's advice. See thou character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. The friends thou hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel. But do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new-hatched, unfledged comrade. Beware of entrance to a quarrel, but, being in, bear't that the posed may beware of thee. Give every man thine ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy, rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Shakespeare, from Hamlet. A fragment from Mark Antony's speech. This was the noblest Roman of them all. All the conspirators, save only he, did that they did in envy of great Caesar. He only, in a general honest thought, and common good to all, made one of them. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, "This was a man." Shakespeare, from Julius Caesar. The Skylark. Bird of the wilderness, blithesome and cumberless, sweet be thy matin o'er moorland and lea. Emblem of happiness, blessed is thy dwelling place. Oh, to abide in the desert with thee! Wild is thy lay, and loud, far in the downy cloud. Love gives it energy, love gave it birth. Where on thy dewy wing, where art thou journeying? Thy lay is in heaven, thy love is on earth. O'er fell and fountain sheen, o'er moor and mountain green, o'er the red streamer that heralds the day, over the cloudlet dim, over the rainbow's rim, musical cherub, soar, singing away. Then when the gloaming comes, low in the heather blooms, sweet will thy welcome and bed of love be. Emblem of happiness, blessed is thy dwelling place. Oh, to abide in the desert with thee! Thomas Hogg. End of section 71, read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 72, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Choir Invisible, The World is Too Much With Us, Sonnet on His Blindness, and She Was a Phantom of Delight. Part 6 continued. The Choir Invisible. The Choir Invisible, by George Eliot, 1819 to 1880, is a fitting exposition in poetry of this Shakespeare of prose. Oh, may I join the choir invisible of those immortal dead who live again, in minds made better by their presence, live in pulses stirred to generosity, in deeds of daring rectitude, in scorn of miserable aims that end with self, in thoughts sublime that pierce the night like stars, and with their mild persistence urge men's minds to vaster issues. May I reach that purest heaven, be to other souls the cup of strength in some great agony, enkindle generous ardor, feed pure love, beget the smiles that have no cruelty, be the sweet presence of good diffused, and in diffusion ever more intense. So shall I join the choir invisible, whose music is the gladness of the world. George Eliot. The World is Too Much With Us. The World is Too Much With Us, by Wordsworth, 1770 to 1850, is perhaps the greatest sonnet ever written. It is true that the eyes of the soul are blinded by a surfeit of worldly goods. I went to the Lake District, England, said John Burroughs, to see what kind of a country could produce a Wordsworth. Of course he found simple houses, simple people, barren moors, heather-clad mountains, wild flowers, calm lakes, plain, rugged simplicity. The world is too much with us. Late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. This sea that bares her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his weathered horn. William Wordsworth. On His Blindness. Sonnet on His Blindness, by John Milton, 1608 to 1674. This is the most stately and pathetic sonnet in existence. The soul enduring enforced idleness and loss of power without repining. Inactivity made to serve a higher end. When I consider how my light is spent, ere half my days, in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent to serve there with my Maker, and present my true account, lest he, returning, chide. Doth God exact day labour, light denied? I fondly ask, but Patience, to prevent that murmur, soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly, thousands at his bidding speed, and post o'er land and ocean without rest. They also serve, who only stand and wait. John Milton. She was a phantom of delight. She was a phantom of delight, by William Wordsworth, 1770 to 1850, is included here because it is a picture of woman as she should be, not made dainty by finery, but by fine ideals. She was a phantom of delight when first she gleamed upon my sight, a lovely apparition sent to be a moment's ornament. Her eyes as stars of twilight fair, like twilight's too her dusky hair. but all things else about her drawn from May-time and the cheerful dawn, a dancing shape, an image gay, to haunt, to startle, and waylay. I saw her, upon nearer view, a spirit, yet a woman too. Her household motions light and free, and steps of virgin liberty, a countenance in which did meet sweet records, promises as sweet, a creature not too bright or good for human nature's daily food, for transient sorrows, simple wiles, praise, blame, love, kisses, tears, and smiles. And now I see with eye serene the very pulse of the machine, a being breathing thoughtful breath, a traveller between life and death. The reason firm, the temperate will, endurance, foresight, strength, and skill. A perfect woman, nobly planned, to warn, to comfort, and command, and yet a spirit still and bright, with something of angelic light. William Wordsworth. End of section 72. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 14th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 73, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. Part 6 continued. Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. I once drove home from Windsor Castle through Eton, down the long hedge-bound road which passes the estate of William Penn's descendants to Stoke Pogus, the little churchyard where this poem was written. They were trimming a great yew tree under which Gray was said to have written this poem. The scene is one of peace and quiet. The elegy was a favorite form of poem with the ancients, but Gray is said to have reached the climax among poets in this style of verse. The great line of the poem is, "The path of glory leads but to the grave." It would almost seem that poetry has for its greatest mission the lesson of proper humility. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day, the lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea, the ploughman homeward plods his weary way, and leaves the world to darkness and to me. Now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, save where the beetle wheels his droning flight, and drowsy tinklings lull the distant folds. Save that from yonder ivy-mantled tower the moping owl does to the moon complain, of such as, wandering near her secret bower, molest her ancient solitary reign. Beneath those rugged elms, that yew tree's shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap, each in his narrow cell for ever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep. The breezy call of incense-breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw-built shed, the cock's shrill clarion, or the echoing horn no more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. For them no more the blazing hearth shall burn, or busy housewife ply her evening care. No children run to lisp their sire's return, or climb his knees the envied kiss to share. Oft did the harvest to their sickle yield, their furrow oft the stubborn glebe has broke. How jocund did they drive their team afield, how bowed the woods beneath their sturdy stroke. Let not ambition mock their useful toil, their homely joys, and destiny obscure, nor grandeur hear with a disdainful smile the short and simple annals of the poor. The boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, and all that beauty, all that wealth e'er gave, await alike the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. Forgive, ye proud, th' involuntary fault, if memory to these no trophies raise, where through the long-drawn aisle and fretted vault the pealing anthem swells the note of praise? Can storied urn or animated bust back to its mansion call the fleeting breath? Can honor's voice provoke the silent dust, or flattery soothe the dull cold ear of death? Perhaps in this neglected spot is laid some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, hands that the rod of empire might have swayed, or waked to ecstasy the living lyre. But knowledge to their eyes her ample page, rich with the spoils of time, did ne'er unroll. Chill penury repressed their noble rage, and froze the genial current of the soul. Full many a gem of purest ray serene the dark unfathomed caves of ocean bear. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen, and waste its sweetness on the desert air. Some village Hampden that with dauntless breast the little tyrant of his fields withstood, some mute inglorious Milton here may rest, some Cromwell guiltless of his country's blood. The applause of listening senates to command, the threats of pain and ruin to despise, to scatter plenty o'er a smiling land, and read their history in a nation's eyes. Their lot forbade, nor circumscribed alone their growing virtues, but their crimes confined, forbade to wade through slaughter to a throne, and shut the gates of mercy on mankind. The struggling pangs of conscious truth to hide, to quench the blushes of ingenuous shame, or heap the shrine of luxury and pride with incense kindled at the Muses' flame. Far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learned to stray. Along the cool sequestered vale of life they kept the noiseless tenor of their way. Yet e'en those bones from insult to protect, some frail memorial still erected nigh, with uncouth rhymes and shapeless sculpture decked, implores the passing tribute of a sigh. Their name, their years, spelt by the unlettered muse, the place of fame and elegy supply, and many a holy text around she strews, that teach the rustic moralist to die. For who to dumb forgetfulness a prey, this pleasing anxious being ere resigned, left the warm precincts of the cheerful day, nor cast one longing lingering look behind? On some fond breast the parting soul relies, some pious drops the closing eye requires. E'en from the tomb the voice of nature cries, e'en in our ashes live their wonted fires. For thee, who, mindful of the unhonored dead, dost in these lines their artless tale relate, if chance by lonely contemplation led, some kindred spirit shall inquire thy fate. Haply some hoary-headed swain may say, "Oft have we seen him at the peep of dawn, brushing with hasty steps the dews away, to meet the sun upon the upland lawn. There at the foot of yonder nodding beech, that wreathes its old fantastic roots so high, his listless length at noontide would he stretch, and pore upon the brook that babbles by. Hard by yon wood, now smiling as in scorn, muttering his wayward fancies he would rove, now drooping, woeful wan, like one forlorn, or crazed with care, or crossed in hopeless love. One morn I missed him on the customed hill, along the heath and near his favourite tree. Another came, nor yet beside the rill, nor up the lawn, nor at the wood was he. The next with dirges dew in sad array, slow through the church-way path we saw him borne. Approach and read, for thou canst read the lay, graved on the stone beneath yon aged thorn. The Epitaph. Here rests his head upon the lap of earth, a youth to fortune and to fame unknown. Fair Science frowned not on his humble birth, and Melancholy marked him for her own. Large was his bounty, and his soul sincere. Heaven did a recompense as largely send. He gave to misery all he had, a tear. He gained from heaven, 'twas all he wished, a friend. No farther seek his merits to disclose, or draw his frailties from their dread abode. There they alike in trembling hope repose, the bosom of his Father and his God. Thomas Gray. End of section 73. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 14th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 74, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Rabbi Ben Ezra. Part 6 continued. Rabbi Ben Ezra, by Robert Browning, 1812 to 1889. Youth is for dispute, and age for counsel. Each year, each period of a man's life is but the necessary step to the next. Youth is an uncertain thing to bank on. Rabbi Ben Ezra is a plea for each period in life. Aspiration is the keynote. Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made. Our times are in his hand, who saith, "A whole I planned." Youth shows but half, trust God, see all nor be afraid. Not that, amassing flowers, youth sighed, "Which rose make ours, which lily leave, and then as best recall?" Not that, admiring stars, it yearned, "Nor Jove nor Mars, mine be some figured flame which blends, transcends them all." Not for such hopes and fears, annulling youth's brief years, do I remonstrate, folly wide the mark. Rather I prize the doubt low kinds exist without, finished and finite clods, untroubled by a spark. Poor vaunt of life indeed, were man but formed to feed on joy, to solely seek and find and feast. Such feasting ended then, as sure an end to men, irks care the cropful bird, frets doubt the maw-crammed beast. Rejoice we are allied to that which doth provide and not partake, effect and not receive. A spark disturbs our clod, nearer we hold of God, who gives, than of his tribes that take, I must believe. Then welcome each rebuff that turns earth's smoothness rough, each sting that bids nor sit nor stand but go. Be our joys 3 parts pain, strive and hold cheap the strain, learn nor account the pang, dare never grudge the throe. For thence, a paradox which comforts while it mocks, shall life succeed in that it seems to fail. What I aspired to be, and was not, comforts me. A brute I might have been, but would not sink i' the scale. What is he but a brute, whose flesh has soul to suit, whose spirit works lest arms and legs want play? To man, propose this test, thy body at its best, how far can that project thy soul on its lone way? Yet gifts should prove their use. I own the past profuse, of power each side, perfection every turn. Eyes, ears took in their dole, brain treasured up the whole. Should not the heart beat once, how good to live and learn! Not once beat, praise be thine, I see the whole design. I, who saw power, see now love perfect too. Perfect I call thy plan, thanks that I was a man. Maker, remake, complete, I trust what thou shalt do. For pleasant is this flesh, our soul in its rose mesh, pulled ever to the earth, still yearns for rest. Would we some prize might hold to match those manifold possessions of the brute, gain most as we did best. Let us not always say, "Spite of this flesh to-day, I strove, made head, gained ground upon the whole." As the bird wings and sings, let us cry, all good things are ours, nor soul helps flesh more now than flesh helps soul. Therefore I summon age to grant youth's heritage, life's struggle having so far reached its term. Thence shall I pass approved, a man for aye removed from the developed brute, a god though in the germ. And I shall thereupon take rest ere I be gone once more on my adventure brave and new. Fearless and unperplexed, when I wage battle next, what weapons to select, what armor to endue. Youth ended, I shall try my gain or loss thereby, leave the fire ashes, what survives is gold. And I shall weigh the same, give life its praise or blame, young, all lay in dispute, I shall know being old. For note, when evening shuts, a certain moment cuts the deed off, calls the glory from the gray. A whisper from the west shoots, add this to the rest, take it and try its worth, here dies another day. So still within this life, though lifted o'er its strife, let me discern, compare, pronounce at last. This rage was right in the main, that acquiescence vain. The future I may face now I have proved the past. For more is not reserved to man with soul just nerved, to act to-morrow what he learns to-day. Here work enough to watch the master work, and catch hints of the proper craft, tricks of the tool's true play. As it was better youth should strive, through acts uncouth, toward making, than repose on aught found made. So better age exempt from strife should know than tempt further. Thou waitedst age, wait death nor be afraid. Enough now, if the right and good and infinite be named here, as thou callest thy hand thine own, with knowledge absolute, subject to no dispute, from fools that crowded youth, nor let thee feel alone. Be there, for once and all, severed great minds from small, announced to each his station in the past. Was I the world arraigned, were they my soul disdained, right? Let age speak the truth, and give us peace at last. Now who shall arbitrate? 10 men love what I hate, shun what I follow, slight what I receive. 10 who in ears and eyes match me, we all surmise, they this thing and I that, whom shall my soul believe? Not on the vulgar mass called work must sentence pass, things done that took the eye and had the price, o'er which from level stand the low world laid its hand, found straightway to its mind could value in a trice. But all the world's coarse thumb and finger failed to plumb, so passed in making up the main account. All instincts immature, all purposes unsure, that weighed not at his work, yet swelled the man's amount. Thoughts hardly to be packed into a narrow act, fancies that broke through language and escaped. All I could never be, all men ignored in me, this I was worth to God, whose wheel the pitcher shaped. I note that potter's wheel, that metaphor, and feel why time spins fast, why passive lies our clay. Thou, to whom fools propound, when the wine makes its round, since life fleets, all is change, the past gone, seize to-day. Fool, all that is at all lasts ever, past recall. Earth changes, but thy soul and God stand sure. What entered into thee, that was, is, and shall be. Time's wheel runs back or stops, potter and clay endure. He fixed thee mid this dance of plastic circumstance, this present thou, forsooth, wouldst fain arrest. Machinery just meant to give thy soul its bent, try thee and turn thee forth, sufficiently impressed. What though the earlier grooves which ran the laughing loves around thy base no longer pause and press? What though about thy rim skull things in order grim grow out in graver mood, obey the sterner stress? Ignored Look not thou down, but up to uses of a cup, the pitcher shaped. Flash and trumpets peal. Note that potter's wheel, the new wine's foaming flow, the master's lip spins fast. Why, heaven's consummate cup, what needst thou with earth's wheel? But I need, now as then, thee, God, who mouldest men. And since, not even while the whirl was worst, did I, to the wheel of life, with shapes and colours rife, bound dizzily, mistake my end to slake thy thirst. So, take and use thy work, amend what flaws may lurk, what strain o' the stuff, what warpings pass the aim. My times be in thy hand, perfect the cup as planned, lest age approve of youth, and death complete the same. Robert Browning. End of section 74. Read by Karish Allenberg on January 14th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 75, read for LibriVox.org by Karish Allenberg. This section contains the following poems: Prospus, Recessional, and Ozymandias of Egypt. Part 6 continued. Prospus. Prospus by Robert Browning, 1812 to 1889, is the greatest death song ever written. It is a battle song and a paean of victory. This poem is included in this book because these lines are enough to reconcile anyone to any fate. Fear death? To feel the fog in my throat, the mist in my face, when the snows begin and the blasts denote I am nearing the place. The power of the night, the press of the storm, the post of the foe. Where he stands, the arch fear in a visible form, yet the strong man must go. For the journey is done, and the summit attained, and the barriers fall. Though a battle's to fight ere a guerdon be gained, the reward of it all. I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last. I would hate that death bandaged my eyes, and forbore, and bade me creep past. No, let me taste the whole of it, fare like my peers, the heroes of old. Bear the brunt, in a minute pay glad life's arrears of pain, darkness, and cold. For sudden the worst turns the best to the brave, the black minutes at end, and the elements rage, the fiend voices that rave shall dwindle, shall blend, shall change, shall become first a peace out of pain, then a light, then thy breast. O thou soul of my soul, I shall clasp thee again, and with God be the rest. Robert Browning. Recessional. The Recessional by Rudyard Kipling is one of the most popular poems of this century. It is a warning to an age and a nation drunk with power, a rebuke to materialistic tendencies and boastfulness, a protest against pride. God of our fathers, known of old, Lord of our far-flung battle line, beneath whose awful hand we hold dominion over palm and pine, Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget. The tumult and the shouting dies, the captains and the kings depart, still stands thine ancient sacrifice, an humble and a contrite heart. Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget. Far called our navies melt away, on dune and headland sinks the fire. Lo, all our pomp of yesterday is one with Nineveh and Tyre. Judge of the nations, spare us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget. If, drunk with the sight of power, we loose wild tongues that have not thee in awe, such boasting as the Gentiles use, or lesser breeds without the law, Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, lest we forget. For heathen heart that puts her trust in reeking tube and iron shard, all valiant dust that builds on dust, and guarding calls not thee to guard, for frantic boast and foolish word, thy mercy on thy people, Lord. Amen. Rudyard Kipling. Ozymandias of Egypt. Ozymandias of Egypt by Percy Bysshe Shelley. 1792 to 1822. This sonnet is a rebuke to the insolent pride of kings and empires. It is extremely picturesque. It finds a place here because more elderly scholars of good judgment are pleased with it. I remember an old gray-haired scholar in Chicago who often recited it to his friends merely because it touched his fancy. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." Percy Bysshe Shelley. End of section 75. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 14th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 76. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, Mortality and On First Looking into Chapman's Homer. Part 6 continued. Mortality. Mortality, by William Knox, 1789 to 1825, is always quoted as Lincoln's favorite poem. Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud, like a fast-flitting meteor, a fast-flying cloud? A flash of the lightning, a break of the wave, he passes from life to his rest in the grave. The leaves of the oak and the willow shall fade, be scattered around, and together be laid, and the young and the old, and the low and the high, shall moulder to dust, and together shall lie. The child that a mother attended and loved, the mother that infant's affection that proved, the husband, that mother and infant that blessed, each, all, are away to their dwelling of rest. The maid on whose cheek, on whose brow, in whose eye shone beauty and pleasure, her triumphs are by, and the memory of those that beloved her and praised are alike from the minds of the living erased. The hand of the king that the sceptre hath borne, the brow of the priest that the mitre hath worn, the eye of the sage and the heart of the brave are hidden and lost in the depths of the grave. The peasant whose lot was to sow and to reap, the herdsman who climbed with his goats to the steep, the beggar that wandered in search of his bread, have faded away like the grass that we tread. The saint that enjoyed the communion of heaven, the sinner that dared to remain unforgiven, the wise and the foolish, the guilty and just, have quietly mingled their bones in the dust. So the multitude goes, like the flower and the weed, that wither away to let others succeed. So the multitude comes, even those we behold, to repeat every tale that hath often been told. For we are the same that our fathers have been, we see the same sights that our fathers have seen. We drink the same stream, and we feel the same sun, and we run the same course that our fathers have run. The thoughts we are thinking our fathers would think, from the death we are shrinking from they too would shrink. To the life we are clinging to they too would cling, but it speeds from the earth like a bird on the wing. They loved, but their story we cannot unfold. They scorned, but the heart of the haughty is cold. They grieved, but no wail from their slumbers may come. They enjoyed, but the voice of their gladness is dumb. They died, aye, they died, and we things that are now, who walk on the turf that lies over their brow, who make in their dwellings a transient abode, meet the changes they met on their pilgrimage road. Yea, hope and despondence, and pleasure and pain are mingled together like sunshine and rain, and the smile and the tear, and the song and the dirge, still follow each other like surge upon surge. 'Tis the wink of an eye, 'tis the draught of a breath, from the blossom of health to the paleness of death, from the gilded saloon to the bier and the shroud. Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud? William Knox. On first looking into Chapman's Homer, by John Keats, 1795 to 1821. The last 4 lines of this sonnet form the most tremendous climax in literature. The picture is as vivid as if done with a brush. Every great book, every great poem is a new world, an undiscovered country. Every learned person is a whole territory, a universe of new thought. Every one who does anything with a heart for it, every specialist, every one, however simple, who is strenuous and genuine, is a new discovery. Let us give credit to the smallest planet that is true to its own orbit. Much have I travelled in the realms of gold, and many goodly states and kingdoms seen. Round many western islands have I been, which bards in fealty to Apollo hold. Oft of one wide expanse had I been told that deep-browed Homer ruled as his demesne. Yet did I never breathe its pure serene, till I heard Chapman speak out loud and bold. Then felt I like some watcher of the skies, when a new planet swims into his ken, or like stout Cortez, when, with eagle eyes, he stared at the Pacific, and all his men looked at each other with a wild surmise, silent, upon a peak in Darien. John Keats. End of section 76. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 14th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 77. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Hervé Riel. Part 6 continued. Hervé Riel, by Robert Browning, 1812 to 1889, is a poem for older boys. Here is a hero who does a great deed simply as a part of his day's work. He puts no value on what he has done, because he could have done no other way. On the sea and at the Hogue, 1692, did the English fight the French, woe to France. And the 31st of May, helter-skelter through the blue, like a crowd of frightened porpoises a shoal of sharks pursue, came crowding ship on ship to St. Malo on the Rance, with the English fleet in view. 'Twas the squadron that escaped, with the victor in full chase, first and foremost of the drove, in his great ship Damfreville. Close on him fled, great and small, 22 good ships in all, and they signalled to the place, "Help the winners of a race! Get us guidance, give us harbour, take us quick, or quicker still, here's the English can and will." Then the pilots of the place put out brisk and leaped on board. "Why, what hope or chance have ships like these to pass?" laughed they. "Rocks to starboard, rocks to port, all the passage scarred and scored. Shall the formidable here, with her 12 and 80 guns, think to make the river mouth by the single narrow way? Trust to enter where 'tis ticklish for a craft of 20 tons, and with flow at full beside? Now 'tis slackest ebb of tide. Reach the mooring, rather say while rock stands or water runs, not a ship will leave the bay." Then was called a council straight, brief and bitter the debate. "Here's the English at our heels, would you have them take in tow all that's left us of the fleet, linked together stern and bow, for a prize to Plymouth Sound? Better run the ships aground." Ended Damfreville his speech. "Not a minute more to wait, let the captains all and each shove ashore, then blow up, burn the vessels on the beach. France must undergo her fate. Give the word. But no such word was ever spoke or heard, for up stood, for out stepped, for in struck amid all these, a captain, a lieutenant, a mate, first, second, third. No such man of mark and meet with his betters to compete, but a simple Breton sailor pressed by Tourville for the fleet. A poor coasting pilot he, Hervé the Croisiquys. And what mockery or malice have we here? Cries Hervé. Are you mad, you Malouins? Are you cowards, fools, or rogues? Talk to me of rocks and shoals, me who took the soundings. Tell on my fingers every bank, every shallow, every swell, twixt the offing here and Grieve, where the river disembogues. Are you bought by English gold? Is it love the lying's for? Morn and eve, night and day, have I piloted your bay, entered free and anchored fast at the foot of Solidor. Burn the fleet and ruin France, that were worse than 50 hogues. Sirs, they know I speak the truth. Sirs, believe me, there's a way. Only let me lead the line, have the biggest ship to steer, get this formidable clear, make the others follow mine. And I lead them, most and least, by a passage I know well, right to Solidor past Grieve, and there lay them safe and sound, and if one ship misbehave, keel so much as grate the ground, why, I've nothing but my life. Here's my head, cries Hervé. Not a minute more to wait. Steer us in, then, small and great. Take the helm, lead the line, save the squadron, cried its chief. Captains, give the sailor place. He is admiral, in brief. Still the north wind, by God's grace. See the noble fellow's face as the big ship with a bound clears the entry like a hound. Keeps the passage as its inch of way where the wide sea's profound. See, safe through shoal and rock, how they follow in a flock. Not a ship that misbehaves, not a keel that grates the ground, not a spar that comes to grief. The peril, see, is past. All are harbored to the last. And just as Hervé hollers anchor, sure as fate, up the English come, too late. So the storm subsides to calm. They see the green trees wave on the heights o'erlooking grave. Hearts that bled are stanched with balm. Just our rapture to enhance, let the English rake the bay, gnash their teeth, and glare askance as they cannonade away. 'Neath rampired Solidor, pleasant riding on the Rance. How hope succeeds despair on each captain's countenance. Outburst all with one accord. This is paradise for hell. Let France's king thank the man that did the thing. What a shout, and all one word, Hervé! As he stepped in front once more, not a symptom of surprise in the frank blue Breton eyes, just the same man as before. Then said Damfreville, "My friend, I must speak out at the end, though I find the speaking hard. Praise is deeper than the lips. You have saved the king his ships. You must name your own reward. Faith, our sun was near eclipse. Demand whate'er you will. France remains your debtor still. Ask to heart's content, and have, or my name's not Damfreville." Then a beam of fun outbroke on the bearded mouth that spoke, as the honest heart laughed through those frank eyes of Breton blue. "Since I needs must say my say, since on board the duty's done, and from Mallow roads to Croisic Point, what is it but a run? Since 'tis ask and have, I may, since the others go ashore, come, a good whole holiday, leave to go and see my wife, whom I call the Belle Aurore." That he asked, and that he got, nothing more. Name and deed alike are lost. Not a pillar nor a post in his Croisic keeps alive the feat as it befell. Not a head in white and black on a single fishing smack, in memory of the man, but for whom had gone to wrack all that France saved from the fight whence England bore the bell. Go to Paris, rank on rank, search the heroes flung pell-mell on the Louvre, face and flank. You shall look long enough ere you come to Hervé. So, for better and for worse, Hervé accept my verse. In my verse, Hervé, do thou once more save the squadron, honor France, love thy wife, the belle Aurore. Robert Browning. End of section 77. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 15th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 78. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 2 poems, The Problem and To America. Part 6 continued. The Problem. The Problem, by Ralph Waldo Emerson, 1803 to 1880, is quoted from one end of the world to the other. Emerson teaches one lesson above all others, that each soul must work out for itself its latent force, its own individual expression, and that with a sad sincerity. The bishop of the soul can do no more. I like a church, I like a cowl, I love a prophet of the soul, and on my heart monastic aisles fall like sweet strains or pensive smiles. Yet not for all his faith can see would I that cowled churchman be. Why should the vest on him allure, which I could not on me endure? Not from a vain or shallow thought his awful Jove young Phidias brought, never from lips of cunning fell the thrilling Delphic oracle. Out from the heart of nature rolled the burdens of the Bible old. The litanies of nations came like the volcano's tongue of flame up from the burning core below, the canticles of love and woe. The hand that rounded Peter's dome and groined the aisles of Christian Rome wrought in a sad certainty, himself from God he could not free. He builded better than he knew, the conscious stone to beauty grew. Know'st thou what wove yon wood-bird's nest of leaves and feathers from her breast? Or how the fish outbuilt her shell, painting with morn each annual cell? Or how the sacred pine tree adds to her old leaves new myriads? Such and so grew these holy piles, while love and terror laid the tiles earth proudly wears the Parthenon, as the best gem upon her zone, and morning opes with haste her lids to gaze upon the pyramids. O'er England's abbeys bends the sky, as on its friends with kindred eye. For out of thought's interior sphere these wonders rose to upper air, and nature gladly gave them place, adopted them into her race, and granted them an equal date with Andes and with Ararat. These temples grew as grows the grass. Art might obey, but not surpass. The passive master lent his hand to the vast soul that o'er him planned, and the same power that reared the shrine bestrode the tribes that knelt within. Ever the fiery Pentecost girds with one flame the countless host, trances the heart through chanting choirs, and through the priest the mind inspires. The word unto the prophet spoken was writ on tables yet unbroken. The word by seers or sibyls told in groves of oak or fanes of gold, still floats upon the morning wind, still whispers to the willing mind. One accent of the Holy Ghost the heedless world hath never lost. I know what say the fathers wise, the book itself before me lies, old Chrysostom, best Augustine, and he who blent both in his line, the younger Golden Lips or Minds, Taylor, the Shakespeare of divines. His words are music in my ear. I see his cowled portrait dear, and yet for all his faith could see, I would not the good bishop be. Ralph Waldo Emerson. To America. To America, included by permission of the Poet Laureate, is a good poem and a great poem. It is a keen thrust at the common practice of teaching American children to hate the English of these days, on account of the actions of a silly old king dead 100 years. Alfred Austin deserves great credit for this poem. What is the voice I hear on the winds of the western sea? Sentinel, listen from out Cape Clear, and say what the voice may be. 'Tis a proud, free people calling loud to a people proud and free. And it says to them, Kinsmen, hail! We severed have been too long. Now let us have done with a worn-out tale, the tale of an ancient wrong. And our friendship last long as our love doth, and be stronger than death is strong. Answer them, sons of the self-same race, and blood of the self-same clan. Let us speak with each other face to face, and answer as man to man, and loyally love and trust each other as none but free men can. Now fling them out to the breeze, shamrock, thistle, and rose, and the star-spangled banner unfurl with these, a message to friends and foes. Wherever the sails of peace are seen, and wherever the war wind blows. A message to bond and thrall to wake, for wherever we come, we twain, the throne of the tyrant shall rock and quake, and his menace be void and vain. For you are lords of a strong land, and we are lords of the main. Yes, this is the voice of the bluff March gale, we severed have been too long. But now we have done with a worn-out tale, the tale of an ancient wrong. And our friendship last long as love doth last, and stronger than death is strong. Alfred Austin. End of section 78. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 15th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 79. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, The English Flag. Part 6 continued. The English Flag. It is quite true that the English flag stands for freedom the world over. Wherever it floats, almost anyone is safe, whether English or not. Winds of the world give answer, they are whimpering to and fro, and what should they know of England, who only England know? The poor little street-bred people that vapour and fume and brag, they are lifting their heads in the stillness to yelp at the English flag. Must we borrow a clout from the Boer to plaster anew with dirt, an Irish liar's bandage, or an English coward's shirt? We may not speak of England, her flags to sell or share. What is the flag of England? Winds of the world, declare. The north wind blew. From Bergen my steel-shod vanguards go. I chase your lazy whalers home from the Disco floe. By the great north lights above me I work the will of God, that the liner splits on the ice field, or the dogger fills with cod. I barred my gates with iron, I shuttered my doors with flame, because to force my ramparts your nutshell navies came. I took the sun from their presence, I cut them down with my blast, and they died, but the flag of England blew free ere the spirit passed. The lean white bear hath seen it in the long, long Arctic night. The musk ox knows the standard that flouts the northern light. What is the flag of England? Ye have but my bergs to dare, ye have but my drifts to conquer. Go forth, for it is there. The south wind sighed, From the Virgins my mid-sea course was ta'en, over 1,000 islands lost in an idle main, where the sea-egg flames on the coral, and the long-backed breakers croon their endless ocean legends to the lazy locked lagoon. Strayed amid lonely islets, mazed amid outer keys, I waked the palms to laughter, I tossed the scud in the breeze. Never was isle so little, never was sea so lone, but over the scud and the palm trees an English flag was known. I have wrenched it free from the halyard to hang for a wisp on the horn. I have chased it north to the Lizard, ribboned and rolled and torn. I have spread its fold o'er the dying, adrift in a hopeless sea. I have hurled it swift on the salver, and seen the slave set free. My basking sunfish know it, and wheeling albatross, where the lone wave fills with fire beneath the Southern Cross. What is the flag of England? Ye have but my reefs to dare, ye have but my seas to furrow. Go forth, for it is there. The east wind roared, From the Curlies, the bitter seas, I come, and me men call the home wind, for I bring the English home. Look, look well to your shipping, by the breath of my mad typhoon I swept your close-packed Praia, and beached your best at Kowloon. The reeling junks behind me, and the racing seas before, I raped your richest roadstead, I plundered Singapore. I set my hand on the Hoogli, as a hooded snake she rose, and I flung your stoutest steamers to roost with the startled crows. Never the lotus closes, never the wildfowl wake, but a soul goes out on the east wind that died for England's sake. Man or woman or suckling, mother or bride or maid, because on the bones of the English flag is stayed. The desert dust hath dimmed it, the flying wild ass knows, the scared white leopard winds it across the taintless snows. What is the flag of England? Ye have but my sun to dare, ye have but my sands to travel. Go forth, for it is there. The west wind called, In squadrons the thoughtless galleons fly that bear the wheat and cattle, lest street-bred people die. They make my might their porter, they make my house their path, till I loose my neck from their rudder and whelm them all in my wrath. I draw the gliding fog-bank as a snake is drawn from the hole. They bellow one to the other, the frightened ship-bells toll. For day is a drifting terror till I raise the shroud with my breath, and they see strange bows above them, and the two go locked to death. But whether in calm or wrack wreath, whether by dark or day, I heave them whole to the conger, or rip their plates away, first of the scattered legions, under a shrieking sky, dipping between the rollers, the English flag goes by. The dead dumb fog hath wrapped it, the frozen dews have kissed, the naked stars have seen it, a fellow star in the mist. What is the flag of England? Ye have but my breath to dare, ye have but my waves to conquer. Go forth, for it is there. Rudyard Kipling. End of section 79. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 15th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 80, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, The Man with the Hoe. Part 6 continued. The Man with the Hoe. The Man with the Hoe is purely an American product, and every American ought to be proud of it, for we want no such type allowed to be developed in this country as the low-browed peasant of France. This poem is a stroke of genius. The story goes that it so offended a modern plutocrat that he offered a reward of $10,000 to anyone who could write an equally good poem in rebuttal. The Man with the Hoe has won for Edward Markham the title of Poet Laureate of the laboring classes. Written after seeing the painting by Millet. God made man in his own image. In the image of God made he him. Genesis. Bowed by the weight of centuries, he leans upon his hoe and gazes on the ground, the emptiness of ages in his face, and on his back the burden of the world. Who made him dead to rapture and despair, a thing that grieves not and that never hopes, stolid and stunned, a brother to the ox? Who loosened and let down this brutal jaw? Whose was the hand that slanted back this brow? Whose breath blew out the light within this brain? Is this the thing the Lord God made and gave to have dominion over sea and land? To trace the stars and search the heavens for power, to feel the passion of eternity? Is this the dream he dreamed who shaped the suns and marked their ways upon the ancient deep? Down all the stretch of hell to its last gulf there is no shape more terrible than this, more tongued with censure of the world's blind greed, more filled with signs and portents for the soul, more fraught with menace to the universe. What gulfs between him and the seraphim, slave of the wheel of labor, what to him are Plato and the swing of Pleiades? What the long reaches of the peaks of song, the rift of dawn, the reddening of the rose? Through this dread shape the suffering ages look, Time's tragedy is in that aching stoop. Through this dread shape humanity betrayed, plundered, profaned, and disinherited, cries protest to the judges of the world, a protest that is also prophecy. O masters, lords, and rulers in all lands, is this the handiwork you give to God, this monstrous thing distorted and soul-quenched? How will you ever straighten up this shape, touch it again with immortality, give back the upward-looking and the light, rebuild in it the music and the dream, make right the immemorial infamies, perfidious wrongs, immedicable woes? O masters, lords, and rulers in all lands, how will the future reckon with this man? How answer his brute question in that hour when whirlwinds of rebellion shake the world? How will it be with kingdoms and with kings, with those who shaped him to the thing he is, when this dumb terror shall reply to God after the silence of the centuries? Edwin Markham. End of section 80. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 15th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 81, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains one poem, Song of Myself. Part 6 continued. Song of Myself. The Song of Myself is one of Walt Whitman's most characteristic poems. I love the swing and the stride of his great long lines. I love his rough-shod way of trampling down and kicking out of the way the conventionalities that spring up like poisonous mushrooms to make the world a vast labyrinth of petty proprieties until everything is nasty. I love the oxygen he pours on the world. I love his genius for brotherliness, his picture of the Negro with rolling eyes and the firelock in the corner. These excerpts are some of his best lines. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul, I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. My tongue, every atom of my blood formed from this soil, this air, born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. I, now 37 years old, in perfect health begin, hoping to cease not till death. I harbor for good or bad, I permit to speak at every hazard, nature without check, the original energy. Have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? Have you reckoned the earth much? Have you practiced so long to learn to read? Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? Stop this day and night with me, and you shall possess the origin of all poems. You shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns left. You shall no longer take things at second or third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the spectres in books. You shall not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. You shall listen to all sides, and filter them from yourself. A child said, "What is the grass?" fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I guess it must be the flag of my disposition, out of hopeful green stuff woven, or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord, a scented gift and remembrance designedly dropped, bearing the owner's name some way in the corners, that we may see and remark and say, "Whose?" Alone, far in the wilds and mountains I hunt, wandering amazed at my own lightness and glee, in the late afternoon choosing a safe spot to pass the night, kindling a fire and broiling the fresh-killed game, falling asleep on the gathered leaves with my dog and gun by my side. The Yankee clipper is under her skysails, she cuts the sparkle and scud. My eyes settle the land, I bend at her prow or shout joyously from the deck. The boatman and clam-diggers arose early and stopped for me. I tucked my trouser ends in my boots and went and had a good time. You should have been with us that day, round the chowder kettle. The runaway slave came to my house and stopped outside. I heard his motions crackling the twigs of the woodpile. Through the swung half-door of the kitchen I saw him limpsy and weak, and went where he sat on a log and led him in and assured him, and brought water, and filled a tub for his sweated body and bruised feet, and gave him a room that entered from my own, and gave him some coarse clean clothes, and remember perfectly well his revolving eyes and his awkwardness, and remember putting plasters on the galls of his neck and ankles. He stayed with me a week before he was recuperated and passed north. I had him sit next me at table, my firelock leaned in the corner. I am the poet of the woman, the same as the man, and I say it is as great to be a woman as to be a man, and I say there is nothing greater than the mother of men. I understand the large hearts of heroes, the courage of present times and all times. How the skipper saw the crowded and rudderless wreck of the steamship, and death chasing it up and down the storm. How he knuckled tight and gave not back an inch, and was faithful of days and faithful of nights. And chalked in large letters on a board, "Be of good cheer, we will not desert you." How he followed them, and tacked with them 3 days, and would not give it up. How he saved the drifting company at last. How the lank, loose-gowned women looked when boated from the side of their prepared graves. How the silent, old-faced infants, and the lifted sick, and the sharp-lipped, unshaved men. All this I swallow, it tastes good, I like it well, it becomes mine. I am the man, I suffered, I was there. The disdain and calmness of martyrs, the mother of old, condemned for a witch, burned with dry wood, her children gazing on. The hounded slave that flags in the race, leans by the fence blowing, covered with sweat. I am the hounded slave, I wince at the bite of the dogs. Hell and despair are upon me, crack and again crack the marksmen. I clutch the rails of the fence, my gored ribs thinned with the ooze of my skin. I fall on the weeds and stones. The riders spur their unwilling horses, haul close, taunt my dizzy ears, and beat me violently over the head with whipstocks. Old age, superbly rising, oh, welcome, ineffable grace of dying days! See ever so far, there is limitless space outside of that. Count ever so much, there is limitless time around that. My rendezvous is appointed, it is certain. The Lord will be there, and wait till I come on perfect terms. The great camerado, the true lover for whom I pine, will be there. And whoever walks a furlong without sympathy walks to his own funeral dressed in his shroud. And to glance with an eye or show a bean in its pod confounds the learning of all times. And there is no trade or employment but the young man following it may become a hero. And there is no object so soft but it makes a hub for the wheeled universe. And I say to any man or woman, let your soul stand cool and composed before a million universes. I see something of God each hour of the 24, and each moment then, in the faces of men and women I see God, and in my own face in the glass I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoe'er I go, others will punctually come, forever and ever. Listener up there, what have you to confide in me? Look in my face while I snuff the sidle of evening. Talk honestly, no one else hears you, and I stay only a minute longer. Who has done his day's work? Who will soonest be through with his supper? Who wishes to walk with me? I too am not a bit tamed. I too am untranslatable. I sound my barbaric yawp over the roofs of the world. Walt Whitman. End of section 81, read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on January 15th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. And the end of the entire book, Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Published in 1904.